Okay. Good morning. I think we'll go ahead and start the meeting if we could, please. And Joyce, I'll ask you to do a roll call if you will.
David Talley.
Here.
Tammy McDonald. She's online.
Here, I'm here.
Okay. Alyssa Dewan. Michael Dixon.
Here.
Mark Bymaster.
Here.
Kathleen Weigel. Leandre Camel.
Here, online.
Okay. We have quorum.
Great. Now we'll do introductions, and we'll start down at this end of the room, please.
Nancy Samuels, Accounting.
Heather Frederick, Chief Financial Officer.
Frank Barbieri, School Board.
Alyssa Davin with the Audit Committee.
Ed Tierney, Deputy Superintendent, Chief of Schools.
Randy Laws, IG's office.
Dave Talley, Audit.
Teresa Michael, Inspector General.
Carrie High, Counsel to the Inspector General.
Joyce Edison, Executive Assistant.
Michael
Tammy
Dixon.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Michael Dixon, Audit Committee.
Mark Bymaster, Audit Committee.
Brett Friedman, Partner, RSM.
Okay, over there.
Joseph Sessions, Chief Operating Officer.
Shane Sertra, Director, Transportation.
Start over here.
Barbara Reynolds, Office of Inspector General.
Susie Kay, IG's office. Carla Acevedo, IG's office.
Chief of IT.
Ray Usler, IT.
Chris Gay, IT. Mike Callahan, IT.
Dawn Humphrey, IT.
Bob List, IT.
Okay, thank you all very, very much. First on, we need a vote to approve the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All opposed? Passed unanimously. Take a minute, if you will, and review the minutes of our last meeting. Seems like it's been a long time, March 25th. So if you'd like to take a minute and review that, and after you, if you don't have any comments, or if you do, fine. If you don't, I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes of March 25th.
I have one comment, and it's a general comment on the minutes, and I just mentioned this.
Why don't we make a motion and a second, and then have your comments? Or, well, go ahead, do your comments if you like, Michael.
Okay. It's really an administrative issue. And it appears like the minutes are being formatted a little differently for this minutes that we're looking at tonight. But some of the narrative, I think, could be a little bit more descriptive. For example, a question is made at the committee level, and there's an answer, yes. Well, yes, okay, but yes, why yes? It's not being added to this. And when I was reviewing these minutes, it was hard for me to remember back in March what the whole topic was about, let alone what the answer yes, why yes versus no, or an answer like the company. The answer was the company. Well, what company? So it's just a general comment, but that's all. I think we could maybe pay attention to more description in the minutes for a review, especially 5 months later or whatever we are.
I believe that there's a concern that adding too much detail on the minutes, it has some legal implications. You could.
Yeah, what I could basically say is this, is we do our best to create, or for record-keeping purposes, something that will allow you to refer back. I know that when we do them, we track the minutes along with the YouTube video. So without providing too much clarity in writing, right, you're able, I think, to take a look at the actual instance in the YouTube video where you can hear the recording and actually see the exchange take place. As far as the annotations, we try to make sure all the action items are addressed, and then for further description, we try to keep the record available for you to access as part of the Public Records Act.
We'll do our best to add some more detail as
A
much
little
as we
bit more
can.
clarity, that's all. Not a whole lot of detail, a little bit more clarity, specifically with the name of a company, or the answer is yes because of this. That would help get my mind back into flow.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Thank you,
Thank
Michael.
you. Thank you.
Now I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passed unanimously. Public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, the Inspector General update. Terry?
Okay, all right. It has been quite a while since we've met, and one of the issues that I want to cover is some of the challenges that we're running into right now. The district is short staff all over, in every department, every unit. And it is no fault of the district offices, but we will put out a report. We can't put the report on the agenda until we get management's response. Because management is so short-staffed, sometimes we don't get that response until one day before we have to publish the agenda. And then we have times where we can't publish, we don't want to bring everybody in for one report. That's not taking into account your all's time. Well, we are consistently, every audit committee, we are waiting at the last minute to get management's response up against publishing the agenda. And it is a mad scramble. So this is something that we're running into, and it's very frustrating. And the only thing I can propose is we do give extensions. We give everybody 30 days for a management response. We can give one extension after that, but if management cannot give a response in 60 days, then we put it on the agenda and they can have their response at the audit committee. Because right now, it's causing my office to give 3 days to get everything together, make sure we have quorum, make sure that we've got everything set up here, we get the books distributed out to the audit committee members, and it's just impossible to get everybody that needs to answer things here, because we're getting these responses so late. So I wanted to get the audit committee's feeling on that. If we give one extension, so we give them 60 days to respond. If the management cannot give a response within 60 days, we just put it on the agenda and they can give the response verbally at the audit committee.
I have a question. When you say management, how many different centers of management are we talking about that these reports go out to in general? 10, 15?
Yeah, you can have, depending on, you may have the chief financial officer, you may have chief academic, you could have transportation.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, there's a lot. And
Right.
I know the chief financial officer is down 3 bureau chiefs, I believe, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's been difficult. I can't even fill my assistant position. I'm still acting budget director, and so it definitely is a workload, and I'm thankful that the IG has been willing to work with us, but I know that I'm one of the ones who has been the delay, because it's usually not just my department that has to respond. It's coordinating the responses with several different areas. And then I do like to review them beforehand, which does also create a bottleneck, because I want to make sure whatever is reported to the committee is accurate. I hate to have something reported and then have me correct it during the meeting. So it really, truly has been a challenge with staffing.
Yes.
Tammy, you had a comment?
Yes. I'm particularly sensitive to the short staffing. It's happening everywhere, and we're having that problem here. It's at the county level government, municipality, it's all over. So, and it does affect one's ability to be able to perform. I think it's a reasonable request in light of the situation that we find ourselves in at this time, to allow responses to be made during the audit committee meeting. And, I feel confident that the persons that need to respond will come, and they will come prepared to make the responses, as well as answer any questions that we might have. And I'm in favor of that request.
What was the prior protocol for this timeline that we're talking about it today? What was it before?
Normally, I believe from before, and because I've only dealt with pandemic on, So that's my experience. So this has been my experience the whole time. But I believe that there was some issues, but it's not been at such an extent and such consistently.
So do we need a motion for this?
No, I just wanted to get the feedback because I don't have a chance to speak to the board. Does anybody have any concerns with doing that way? That we give normally 30 days, I give one extension for 60, and if you don't have it by then we just put it on the agenda and the management can give their response verbally.
I think that there
Definitely
really
seems
isn't much
reasonable.
choice.
Okay,
It's reasonable.
I can go along with that.
all right.
I do have another comment, though.
Yes,
And that is, what this does do in making a change like this is it does really point to the need to have better minutes, because we're translating, or we're allowing the responders to respond verbally, and that would have to be translated to your audit report or reduced to your audit report. But I think it's important to have better minutes. I was challenged with the minutes also. If an audit committee member is not there and they go back to read the minutes, if the minutes are not a little more clear, I understand being concise, but sometimes I think we can say more than just yes and expound a little bit. So I agree that the minutes should be a little bit more detailed to the extent allowable from a legal standpoint. However, I think by allowing persons to respond verbally, it really does point to the need for having more detail.
I definitely agree with you. What we would do is they would come in and present, but they'd also give their written response at the audit committee. So because we have the timeline that we have to have before we have to post the agenda, it's a week out. And that only gives the directors for some departments only 1 week's notice that they need to have somebody here. So if we put it on the agenda, we can give 2 weeks out, put it on the agenda. If we don't have your response, you can bring it and we can distribute it at the audit committee at that time, and then they can verbally give it as well.
I would assume that the written response, the final one, is actually going to go in the final report also.
Correct, yes. You just won't have it before when we normally put out the agenda. We normally send all the audit committee members the reports, the P&T with the management response. You just may not have that before the meeting.
You can only do so much, so. Is that acceptable to the committee members?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next, we are working on the risk assessment interviews. And that is where I speak to management and the board. And I've gotten some responses. We are working through those. I want to present the annual work plan to you all as soon as possible, especially before the school year starts. Right now, we have a focus on safety and security, especially after the Uvalde. That is one thing that we are looking at and we are addressing. Plus, we had an open issue from the school police and that crisis response plan. So we're going to do another complete audit because it's been so long, that thing has now been closed out. We've had 3 changes in chief of police. We've had numerous legislative changes, so that's something we've already addressed. So I'd like the audit committee members to think about anything for the plan, and then next audit committee, we're going to discuss the annual work plan. So I just wanted to put it on your radar.
Okay. I have a comment relative to several prior meetings that we've discussed our systems and different systems that we use. In today's, we're gonna see in today's agenda maybe 2 or 3 new names that I've just saw, systems that are being used here. And we had asked as a committee, and I think the minutes will follow through with this, that we really wanted to focus on that, because there's been several topics for discussion at some length in prior meetings about different systems not working together, certain vendors not being able to download information. I'm not being specific, but I think in prior meetings you'll see that was an issue. I would suggest that be considered for your work plan.
Thank you.
And also, I've asked Terry to invite Chief Mooney, our new chief of police, to the meeting. She couldn't make it today, but I think she's going to plan to come to the next meeting. So you all can get a chance to meet her, and she can give you some ideas of what her plans are to keep our school system safe.
Wasn't there a topic where we were supposed to have that private meeting?
Right,
Outside the committee?
Yes.
That never happened, right?
No, not yet. We are,
Still
because,
pending?
yes,
It's still pending, right, okay.
yeah. Again, new chief coming in.
I got it.
Yeah. All right. Next, we have the CARES program, which is the Centralized Complaint Assessment Referral and Evaluation System. And this is a joint effort between our office and HR and the superintendent, where we are going to have a centralized reporting system. This way, all reports will go in through the CARES system and then will be referred out like it normally is. But we will now have an understanding of what is happening throughout the district. So if there is a trend in an issue, we have one central reporting. Right now, issues and complaints can be reported to about 7 different departments, and we have no idea. So there may be an issue or a trend or a concern, but because HR is looking at this, risk management is looking at this, we all may be looking at the same things, but not understanding that there's an issue and a trend and an uptick or a downtick. So that's something that HR and my office have been working together, and I want to say that it's doing very well. We're having some very good progress with it. I'm hoping to have it rolled out and do the policies and the workshop with the board in this next couple of months, I'm hoping. So just want to put that on your radar. That's going to also help statistically. We're going to be able to say how many complaints we're getting, and we're going to say how they're resolved and how in different areas that we're having problems in. And that'll all be able to be pulled statistically, and we'll be able to see the trends. And I think it'll be very valuable to the board, the directors, everybody, to see what's going on, because right now we just don't know. Last is the inspection program. Can we put that?
No, I'm on the school district audit committee meeting. Okay, I'll call you back. Bye.
The inspection? Can you put the inspection, my PowerPoint up?
It's on.
Thank you. Nope. 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 Remember I emailed it to you? All right, well, we can pull that up. The Inspector General, okay, here you go. Inspectors inspect. It's one thing that we have not done here, and this is something that I've done in every IG's office. You do inspections, and that is a proactive approach to issues and concerns and compliance. We are going to start doing unannounced safety and security inspections at the schools. Is this a test, Joyce? Are you testing me here? Okay. The purpose behind the inspection program is to provide an independent review of the school's compliance with Florida Safe Schools standards and local safety measures. Currently, there's a tool that all schools have to do, part of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, where they have to complete this assessment tool where that's like 5 pages, and they put down, are our cameras working? Do we lock all doors? Do we do this? Do we do that? And this is sent to Tallahassee, and Tallahassee acts as a repository. Tallahassee's not reviewing these and approving these. So as far as I know, there's no independent review to make sure that everything in there is correct, that it's following. And the one thing that I know from human nature and from working in corrections is that if there's a chance to break something down, a human person will do it. They'll leave a door open. They'll undo a lock. And without having that constant reminder, we get complacent. And that's how I think some of these issues that I've been studying through Uvalde and Marjorie Stillman was complacency and getting too lax and thinking it's never going to happen. So what I want to do is act as a reminder that somebody's going to be coming out at different times. And school police is also going to be doing this, and we're coordinating this with the superintendent and school police, where we're going to come out and do unannounced inspections. And we're going to use the Florida Safe Schools Assessment Tool along with some local initiatives. And we're just going to do a compliance. It's got to be quick so we can get the responses back out to the schools. And it's just reinforcing what is going on. And it's a snapshot and observations of what we found at that time. What it's not. We're not doing an audit or an investigation. We're not expressing an opinion on the safety measures if they're accurate. We don't have that ability. And it's definitely not an indictment that school police or they're not doing their job. This is just another added layer. It's not a comprehensive report. We can't check every door, but we are going to do our very best to check as many doors and to follow as much as we can. And the report is not going to be formalized. It's not going to be this big narrative, because we need to get the responses out to them very quickly. So this is a compliance. It's a checklist. These inspections will start this summer and will continue on, because I believe that safety and security should be an ongoing issue and not just because we had a shooting recently in another state. These will be unannounced and conducted at various times. The inspections will be conducted by IG staff, both the evaluating staff, which is out of contract, and investigative staff. The auditors will also be doing a mini review every time they go out as well. Yes, sir?
Pardon me, I have a question. Who's your investigative staff?
The investigative staff that'll be doing this? Oh, we have 5 investigators, and then we have an evaluator.
Who are the investigators, though? Are they outside people, or are
No,
they
they're our staff.
your staff people?
Yes, we have our investigators. We have,
And then you have the police also.
right, they do their own, right.
They do their own, or you're doing it in conjunction with what they would recommend?
Well, if they have any concerns, we'll take feedback from them on our risk assessment for which schools we're going to do. We will immediately, because they're responsible for
That's the selection part. That's not what I'm asking. The coordination of the police, school district police, and your office.
Right.
This program's going to be put in place. I understand that. And it hasn't been done for a long time, but you're going to use this 5-page narrative given to you by the state, which doesn't do anything with it anyway. So that could be good or bad, or could be outdated. Are you engaged at all in this program with discussions with the county sheriff?
No, because the school police handles the safety and security.
I understand. I understand. But for the cases that you're bringing up, we're way beyond the school police. They involve multiple sources of security that were brought into those situations. I would like you to think about talking with them, the sheriff's office, as you kick this program off, get their input, because they may be very valuable for us, very valuable.
We could definitely.
And it's outside of our big global dome of the school district.
There is a section of the tool which talks about how the school police and the principal has worked with outside responders, the first responders coming in, because they have an incident command response. You have, they will do support. Sheriff's office will support. There's also MOUs with local police departments to provide support, especially on an incident like that. And that is something we will look at, but I will definitely reach out to them as well. That's a good idea.
Bradshaw would love to help.
How often? Well, these inspections will be done in combination with the investigations that they normally do. It's based on a risk assessment they will be performing. And this is just a snapshot. It's a compliance inspection. So we are looking at certain indicators. Did we find compliance? Did we not? Right. Now, due to confidentiality issues and due to security, we do not want to put out, if we find an open door, there's no doors in this whole school. So with the tool and the results have to remain confidential. We are going to distribute it to the chief and the superintendent, and they can decide who goes from there. The chief of police is the one that's in charge of security, and superintendent, of course, is responsible for everything. Any immediate concerns, we're not going to wait for the report. the inspectors are going to call me, and I'll immediately call the chief and the superintendent to say, we found no locks on any of the school. And we'll immediately notify them. The actual report that we find, I want it done the next day after the inspection. We need timely, quick responses on these because it's not something we can spend time massaging a report. And then the distribution is going to have to be done in closed session. All right. FAQs. Will staff?
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Excuse me for interrupting. Does this include the charter schools?
I have reached out to the charter schools and offered this to them. And they are looking at it, and so far I've gotten a couple of that said they have asked for it. Again, every kid is important. Every staff is important, regardless of their.
Right.
So we've made that offer to them. They will look at. Our goal is for the staff to look at approximately 20% of the classrooms. They will walk around the perimeter of the school. Any serious breaches immediately, as I said, will be notified. The reports will be exempt by public records. The only information that we can have available is that the program is in place and the amount of what we have. Other than that, the information is restricted. The report is a compliance checklist, but there's going to be photographs, diagrams. There are going to be questions, whereas the staff members going through the school, they're going to ask, if, say there's a substitute, if we have a code red, what are you going to do? What do you do? They're going to see if they see staff walking around without IDs. And these are things that they're going to follow up on. We're also going to check to see if the policies are in place as well in training. The actual inspection tool is about 4 pages long. Also, it's very important that we look at the inspections at different times. Drop-off, pickup are very vulnerable. High school football games, we got to make sure that we're using security at that times as well. So those are all things that we're taking into consideration. Some of the issues to be determined is how we are going to deliver these findings to you all and to the board. So that's one of the reasons why I want to bring it forward to everybody. I would imagine that I would say a closed session, that I would present what we've done that quarter as far as inspections, and it's up to you whether or not you would like the principal or whoever here to respond, or you just want the report. And that's one of the things that I need to get feedback from the committee on how you want that.
Mr. Chair, question. Prior to issuing that feedback, and I apologize for my tardiness, prior to issuing that feedback, have we made a decision that we want that the Inspector General or the Audit Committee is expanding its scope to include these type of reviews?
Inspectors Generals all do inspections. That's how we got the name of inspections. At DJJ, when I was there, one of the biggest issues, or one of the biggest things DJ did, was facility inspections. There is a actual certification for evaluators and inspectors that's offered by the AIG. We have one staff that has gone through it. We will now be sending all the investigators through that certification as well. But we're going to do training on that. I'm also offering the training to the regionals and the superintendents to show what we're going to be looking for. I want the word of mouth out there that we're going to be doing this so that people are kind of cognizant and reminded that let's not prop the door open. Let's let them know that we are going to be coming out there and checking, so that everybody stays vigilant at all times.
Yeah. And I don't want anyone listening to the recording or in this room to think that I'm not supportive. I am supportive. I'm also looking at tomorrow expansion of staffing, being able to sustain this level of service that we are taking on. So I am supportive, but I'm also wanting to sustain it. Now, have we had the conversation, and I know you probably have, with the chief of schools, chief of school operations facilities, and all the departments, the custodial staff, and everyone is on board with this?
The way I have discussed with the chief of police, who is the person that's in charge of the safety and security, and the superintendent, as well as the board members on one-on-ones. One of the things with investigations, unlike audit, it's cyclical. You have ups and downs. And there are times when the investigators are waiting for, like during the summer, or there are times when there's a lull in the investigations because you can't plan those. And those are the times when I imagine that they are going to be doing these inspections. If we have an immediate concern, we're going to go out and do one based on a risk assessment. But this is going to be something they're doing in addition to their duties and should be able to be done in 2 days. So it is not something, yeah, per school.
2 days per school.
Right.
Okay, that's what the time.
The inspection does one day, the next day they do the report. It's a compliance inspection. You know, is there one main entrance? Yes, no. Are staff being challenged prior to entering the school? Yes, no. Did you find any doors that have been jimmied open or the locks have been broken? Take a picture, this is where it is. Yes, no. So it's not a narrative. It's not, a 5-page report where, like our investigations are. But it's a compliance checklist.
But you're saying that this is going to be, some of these will be done in conjunction with other investigations. So say they're going out for a surprise cash count.
Right.
Instead of going there again, they can do the surprise cash count and then do some of this investigation at the same time.
Right. And they'll be doing it in 2-man teams so that they have somebody there too, and it'll be taking pictures, looking at diagrams, looking at the cameras, making sure that that there is no indications that, as I said, one of the things that you find quite often is you find a garbage can right next to a door so that they're propping doors open all the time, magnets over the latches. You also may have an issue where you have an opening for a public park or something where a gate is left open or opened up too early before drop off or pick up. And those are things that we find that sometimes aren't manned because someone didn't realize we're opening it up too early. So those are the things we're all going to be looking for.
So this is going to be included in your work plan that you mentioned earlier
Yes.
for a full year?
Well, I don't see this ever stopping.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, just asking.
Yeah, this is something that IGs do. It's not unusual. As I said, I've had many years of doing this. I've done them over and over again. IGs even have a specification for it. And that's exactly how we got the term Inspector Generals, because of doing inspections. We just have not done them here.
I think it's a good program to initiate. I really commend you on bringing this forward. I think it's timely. It's needed. Pulling it off is going to be your problem, but it's a very good initiative to add to the office.
Thank you. We have full support of, I've spoken with the board members. They're very much on board with it. The public will also, give some reassurance that there is an independent third-party person looking at these things. There's a lot of concerns that they're not being, someone's not looking at this. The deputy superintendent, we've had many conversations on this.
See, that's why I agree with that. That's why I think the sheriff's office, Palm Beach County, should be consulted here, because that's really independent.
We will talk with them.
Everything's within your venue here, the school, police, your office, still within the school district. Take it a little further outside to add some diversity to observations and interpretations.
We will reach out to them.
If we could also, so that there are no surprises, share that what they will be investigating or researching to make sure that the custodial staff, and forgive me, they are aware in advance, because they should know what we're going to be looking for, so that they can look at it now. There are no surprises. And now it gives management, when there are deficiencies, it gives them something. Oh, we did tell you. So we're not checking the locks. There's someone at the school site that's facilities managing that facility. They need to be aware of what what we'll be researching or searching for.
Yes, the assessment tool that I started from is the FSSAT, which every school principal has to fill out every year and submit. And it's also approved by the chief, and I believe that Mr. Sanchez's department also looks at it as well, operations. So we're basing it off of that tool that they already submit, and we're just reinforcing and making sure that everything in there is matching up. So, and we are going to be meeting with the regional superintendents this summer. I'm more than willing to sit down with any of the principals, explain to them. I'm working with the chief of police. Again, I think the more people understand and are cognizant and keep this on their forefront of their mind, I kind of take it as the same way as when you have a police car sitting by the side of the road. There may not be a cop sitting in there, but just seeing the car, knowing that there's somebody there slows down. I just want people to think and be mindful of the safety and security that needs to be done every day, and not just after we have another incident.
You need a motion to support this?
No, I just wanted to introduce this to you all. You all will be seeing this. You all will be hearing about this. So I wanted you all to understand what we have going.
Good program.
This part,
Oh, sorry.
there was a question you wanted to bring to us and how to
Right.
present this information.
Right. Yeah. And again, I imagine we'll do it on a closed session because you're going to find out details. We can't necessarily put that out. Do you want the principals or the regional people here to speak to these, or do you just want to hear what we found?
I think that should be they should be closed sessions, but management, you should make that based upon what the outcome is if they need to present, if the principal or whomever needs to attend that meeting. So based upon your recommendation, but they do need to be a closed session.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Heyer, are we sure that statutorily the audit committee can be part of a closed session so that there's no request, public records request? Once you have the principal there, then the school identity is...
That's one of the issues that we sort of have to hash out still, but to answer your first question, yes, the audit committee has the authority statutorily, if they're discussing matters of security and fire safety plans, to hold a closed session.
Okay.
It's exempt and confidential from public records disclosure. I believe, based on the reading of the law, that as long as the session and the attendees at the session are related to the fire safety or security plans being discussed, they'd still fall under that umbrella of exemption. But again, like you mentioned before, it's probably wise to not have everybody showing up at a session like what we're doing right now.
We would definitely not put the school's name. It would just be the quarter, what the safety inspections that we've conducted in that quarter.
No, I'm not so much worried about
Agenda.
the report, because I know you can be careful on whatever the public sees, but I just want to make sure that if we have a closed session with audit, that there's no way that anybody can request any records with respect to that closed session, statutorily.
Right, those are issues that, again, we'll be mindful of, and we have to address them on a case-by-case basis, but those are the intentions.
Okay, and while we're on that issue, I'm sorry to interject, but I know the IG has asked for Attorney General's opinion on whether or not the IG should be able to attend closed sessions that the board has on security. Do you have any communication back yet on that?
We've not heard a response yet. I've reached out, and I'm waiting to hear back. So
Just so the audit committee knows, I'm speaking as one board member. I'm in favor of having the Inspector General at closed security meetings that typically only involves the school board plus security personnel and, of course, the superintendent. I think that the Inspector General should be there, especially if they're doing these reports. They should understand the security issues that the board is faced with and be able to participate in those meetings. So hopefully you'll get a response from the Attorney General that you can be part of those meetings.
This is in conjunction, the crisis response plan audit that we did. The board has had closed sessions meetings about that I'm not allowed to attend. So there's discuss, besides the inspection program, there's other safety and security inspections and other safety, security issues that we've audited that I'm prohibited from attending when those presentations are given. Right now, I've been told I cannot attend. I don't know what school police and risk management is reporting are the issues or what is being discussed. So this is something that we're trying to work out.
I'm sure that's going to evolve
Yes.
going forward.
So,
I hope so.
It has to.
again, final notes. This is going to be coordinated with the superintendent and chief of police. I'm not doing this in a silo. And we will also reach out to the local sheriff and as well as some of the municipalities because they also have a stake in this. And the program is going to be introduced this summer. I'm going to be talking with the regionals. I'm going to explain everything that we're doing, minus the exact safety and security tool that is confidential by Florida statutes. So, do you have any questions? I know I've rambled on enough for one day.
Thank you, Terry.
End of meeting.
Okay, we'll move on to audit reports. We'll start with 5.1, eligibility of dependents for district's health care programs.
This audit is going to be introduced and discussed by Barbara Reynolds.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Barbara Reynolds, and as Teresa said, I'll be presenting the report for this audit. This audit focused on assessing the adequacy of procedures for ensuring that only eligible dependents are included in the district's health care program. And it also focused on determining the extent of compliance with school board policies. Okay, for the purpose of this audit, health care programs include medical health insurance, dental care insurance, and vision care insurance. The district's medical insurance program is self-insured and managed by United Healthcare. They are responsible for processing the claims as well as maintaining a network of medical providers. The district's medical insurance program is available to all.
One moment, we're having a problem with it, the presentation being broadcast. Technology is not our friend. Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, yeah, I'll start over. Okay, I'll just give a little background information. As I said before, the medical insurance program is self-insured, and United Healthcare manages this, the medical insurance program. And they're responsible for processing claims and maintaining a network of healthcare providers. The district health insurance program is available to all eligible employees and their dependents. The premiums for the, sorry, let's go back. The premiums for the dental and vision care are paid by the employees, fully paid by the employees. Next, we'll go to the dependents, and as shown there, the employee's spouse or registered domestic partner, as well as employees' children, are also dependents of the employee and are covered by the district's health insurance programs. And this table just give a breakdown of the cost of the medical program to the district for FY 19, 20, and 21. As you can see, for FY 21, district expended over $175 million for coverage of approximately 38,000 employees. This includes active employees and retirees and their dependents. Now we move on to the benefits enrollment process. The Risk and Benefits Management Department, they are responsible for managing the benefits enrollment process. And newly hired, they are required to submit their dependents through the PeopleSoft system, enroll them in the PeopleSoft system, and also to submit their verification documentation within 30 days, of being hired. And then after that, they have an opportunity to make changes during the open enrollment session. That is after they're already in the program. So during this period, they can add or make changes to their plans or add dependents. And this happens usually in October and November. And all these changes will become effective on January 1st of the following year. The employees can also make changes during a specified period. They call it when they have change in status events. These are events earmarked by the federal government that, such as when someone's spouse dies, or when they have a newborn, then these are called special life events. And they have a 60-day period to submit a written request to the benefits department, as well as their documentation, and submit it. And the first month after benefits management receives all this documentation, then these changes will become effective. Now we'll move to the dependent verification process. The district district introduced this process during 2009, and the purpose of this verification process is to ensure that only eligible dependents are included in the district healthcare program. So for an employee to enroll their dependent, they have to, first of all, go through the PeopleSoft system and enroll them. Then they complete this dependent verification form. This form is a form used by the Risk and Benefits Management Department, where the employee, signs off that they are responsible for enrolling the dependents. And they also have to submit their documentation to prove the relationship with the employee that it's really their spouse or it's really their child, they usually have to provide something like the birth certificate, marriage certificate, or other, if it's a adopted child, then they'll have to provide the adoption paperwork and all of that in order to be enrolled. After all of this is provided, the Risk and Benefit Management Department, they will review it, and of course they look at the original documents, that the employees turn in, and they verify that everything is okay and approve it, and then after that, it's only after that that these people are able to get the benefits. Now for the audit conclusions of this audit. I reviewed the initial benefits enrollment procedures for March, and I looked at dependents, for a total of 14 dependents who were enrolled during that period. And I did not find any exceptions. All the procedures were okay, and all the documentation that were supposed to be submitted were submitted and approved by Risk and Benefits Management Department. The next conclusion has to do with the dependents, or let me back up. Some of these dependents are enrollment are subject to age limits. For example, the children, the upper limit for them being, for them to remain on the plan is age 25, and they can remain on the plan for the entire month of their 26th birthday. For grandchildren, the upper limit for them to remain in the program is 18 months. Okay, so for this group of dependents, those approaching the age limit during April, I sampled 29 of these dependents, and all of them who attained that age limit were appropriately removed, or if they were eligible for a conversion, then they were converted. That means that the employee would purchase a separate insurance for them, and they would pay the market rate premium for them, because here they would be included. The children who are 26 and over, they would be included as adult, as dependent adult children. So the district does not subsidize their insurance. Okay. The next conclusion has to do with disabled adult dependents. And during the period, there were a total of 30 disabled adult children in the program. For these disabled adults, they have to prove that they were disabled prior to turning age 25 to be eligible. So I did look at the 30 children in the program and found that 83% of them, or 25, did not have all the required documentation to be eligible for the district to be included in the healthcare program. Next. Okay, the results of this the result of this part of the audit was turned over to the Risk and Benefits Management Department, and they were able to provide Social Security documentation or disabilities documentation for 15 of them from the Social Security Department. The other 8, they did not get any documentation, and they were removed from the program. And the final conclusion has to do with dependents without verification documentation. I looked at 573 dependents and to determine whether they have proof of eligibility. And I found that 177 of them did not have all the supporting documentation. And the estimated cost to the district for 147 of them who were covered under the medical plan amounted to $679,000. The conclusions of this audit was reported to the Risk and Benefits Management Department, and they are working on trying to, do an audit of these dependents for the next coming year, benefits year.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Are there any questions, from the committee? Barbara?
No, I don't. I wonder if they have any question for me.
It looks like the majority of the non-compliance has to do with people being verified before 2012, and then there's no follow-up after that. So did we go back through and look at everybody from this that were verified before 2012 to make sure that all are up to speed currently?
And that's the purpose of the dependent eligibility verification audit,
Yeah.
which we're in the process of looking for a consultant in order to do that work. We also are working with legal because, you think something will be easy, and it isn't as soon as legal gets involved.
Yeah.
And so since we would be asking and requesting additional verification documents that is not explicitly stated within our policy, we may have to make changes in the policy prior to doing and performing this audit.
Okay.
But that's the purpose of that, so that we would start initially with spouses and domestic partners, because that's a smaller group, and in the following year, we would do all dependents, all children.
That's the total population included in the plan today?
That would be the total population included, yep.
Um,
Well, they'll go through and do an audit, and we'll see whether we have, extensive non-compliance. I mean, we have gone through this in the past, but that is the plan, is to make everybody re-verify. So that's why we're starting with the smaller group with the spouses and domestic partners, because the other dependents will take much more time.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions?
I have another question.
Michael?
When you see the $678,000, it's a lot of money, but when you look at the total cost of the program, it's immaterial. So any type of expenditure you have like this, and you look at the variance, it's really not that substantial. But however, what I found interesting in this report is that, I don't know where you say it in this report, but the Risk Management Department reviews these things every month. I don't know what that means. Could you be more specific? I can tell you exactly where I saw that. It's item 3 on page 7, 83% of dependents, where you're talking about 30 children, blah, blah, blah. And it talks about monthly reviews by this department. What exactly are they reviewing for this kind of a discrepancy to occur? Forget the dollar amount for a minute. Just the non-compliance of the procedure. What are they doing? I don't know what that review means. I guess I'm asking, what exactly does a monthly review do?
Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, the department runs reports every month. They look at it, and then for the details, maybe Heather can supplement on that part. How did they do it?
Well, I believe what they're referencing within, because that's not within the, I'm trying to look to see exactly, you referencing our response, or are you referencing the?
I'm sorry, it's, management's response. Yeah. Management's response. I know, concurs. Item 3, page 7, second paragraph, 83% of the dependents, but that.
Yeah, because we're reviewing anybody who's newly enrolled to
only
ensure
new
that.
people.
Only new people. We're not going back and doing the
Nothing before
verification,
that.
right.
Okay, thank you.
And so-
That makes sense then.
And that's why, like you mentioned that 25 of the 30 related to the verification process that was in 2012, anybody who was newly enrolled prior to 2012. after we took it over internally, there were very few non-compliance.
Yeah, it just seems like they were verified back in 2012,
And
and then
there was
something, and then something happened after that to where they were no longer eligible, and just that slipped through the cracks, and they were still continuing to get service without.
Correct, because we didn't do a
Yeah.
verification that they were still eligible. So that's the whole
That's the
process.
new
That's the
program that
purpose
you're
of the.
pursuing.
Right.
Got it.
And that's a normal best practice for a plan our size.
Sure, sure. I don't know if, one thing, Barbara, is it? Barbara?
Yeah.
I understood by reading your report that this is a self-insured plan, but it doesn't say that in your report. The numbers are here, but I didn't read self-insured because I had a question mark on that. And then your opening statement was that in your presentation here, it's self-insured. I'm just commenting on that. It doesn't say it's self-insured. It should
Yes,
say
it's,
it in the
yes, it's
report.
on page 2, the
I
background
missed it.
section.
I missed it?
Page 2, background section, the first paragraph. The fourth line, the medical health insurance is a district self-insured program.
I apologize for that comment then. I was reading too fast, maybe.
Okay, are there any further questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve this report.
I'll make
Motion
a
to
motion.
approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you, Barbara, very much. Okay, next is a review of after-school program records at Galaxy E3 Elementary School.
That is Susie Kay, who will be doing this. Susie Kay, supervisor.
Okay.
Good morning. I'll give Joyce a second here to get the slides up. So this was a program that was an outcropping of one of our school's annual audits. We go into during the internal accounts audits, we go into each school. We look at the school's after-school program finances, and this particular school, what caused the special review was that at the time we were there were records missing and their database was not being accurately maintained. So as a result, we pulled all the records for that school year, which happened to be fiscal year 2021, and we did a complete 100% review of all of the documentation for the program for that year. So the objectives were to determine if the fees charged and collected for that after-school program were properly accounted for, and also to determine if program records were properly maintained. So to give you a little background, after-school programs are self-supported by user fees, and they're required to be paid in advance. The program at Galaxy is one of our district's operated programs, and they have a standardized fee structure. Everybody at every school program, we have 93 in the district, I believe at the moment, follow the same fee structure. They have the same requirements of advance payment. There's no surprises from school to school. Every school uses, at the time the program was called Easy Care 2, is a software program that's used to track all the fees and payments that are made by each student. So in order to protect program data, site directors at each site are required to create daily backups of the database. And at the end of the school year, they're supposed to create a backup of that database and keep one copy in the school safe for at least 5 years or in the treasurer's office. And then another copy of that year-end database is sent over to the district's extended learning department, which oversees after-school programming. So as we spoke of before, during the school year 21 school audit, the auditor went in, and we don't do huge sampling during the school audit. We're just doing a real overview. And she asked for 6 different sample students, which had been picked from the attendance rosters, and 4 of the registration forms for those 6 were not available. And then when she went to look for the backup copy for the database, that again was not available at the school. That's when we found out that at that school, the daily backup copies were not being created. So the database that we did use for this review, we were able to get the end of the school year database that was created June 15th from the Extended Learning Department. And during the audit, we typically have the director create a backup for us while we're on site. So we were able to get a backup copy created on November 11th, which is subsequent to that school year. The way they do their maintenance of their database, and according to the manual that Extended Learning keeps, and in my discussions with them, as of November the 11th, it should have had all the data from at least July 1st, 2020, forward to November 11th, year and a half. And when we got there, that was not what we found. So the conclusions after looking at this 100% review were the following. We found out that the program records were not being, some of the program records were kept at the site director's residence. So when we couldn't locate those 4 out of the 6 registration forms, the auditor made a inquiry to the director, and she proceeded to retrieve 31 registration forms from her home. And the auditor took those 31 registration forms, started looking at the November 11th database that the director had created, and 20 of those students were not in the database. So not everything in the records in the database were accurate. The school's program at Galaxy, unfortunately, has a repeated history of student records not being kept at the school or in violation of directives. We've also had problem with records missing. We've had problems with improperly maintained databases, and the history goes quite a ways back to at least fiscal year 2008, as you can see. We went through, as I said, 100% of all of the records that we were able to gather together. We looked at attendance rosters, we looked at parent sign-out sheets, we looked at the databases. From that, we were able to identify 137 students that participated during fiscal year 2021. Of those 137 students, we were only able to identify 114 registration forms, and that included the 31 that came back from the director's home. The remaining 23 students that were part of the program, there were no registration forms. So we had, 15 of those were students that were on the attendance rosters. So we've got attendance, but we had no registration forms. We had some that were on subsidy reimbursement reports where we're getting reimbursements from the local subsidizer, but we have no registration form. So that was some of the missing records that we were encountering. Working with the 2 available databases that we had from June 15th and November the 11th, we should have had at least 137 students in that database. Well, looking at June 15th, 17 of those students weren't in the database. Looking at November 11th, 43 students were missing from that database. So it appears that the student information and their accompanying payment information was, I'll say, incorrectly removed from the EasyCare database during their maintenance. Looking at the student continuing, we also one of the things we do at the school audits, and as I said, we do it on a global basis. We do for the full year is we try to just reconcile revenue that's showing as collected through the EasyCare database to the school's revenue records. And we get pretty close at every school. But with these 2 databases, this was one of our hints that the databases were not complete, because in both cases, they were large differences between them. In both cases, the school cash, the school's general ledger is showing more collections than the database for the program. So something is not talking to the other. So we went through and we looked at very detailed student by student, and we did an estimate of how much fees should have been collected, how much payment was collected, and we ended up with the results of the fees, as I spoke, the fee structure is the same at all schools. By the time we prorate, there's no proration. When we looked at each individual student and added it up, we ended up with an undercharge of about $6,300 of program fees. These are fees that estimated based on like attendance rosters and parent signouts. So a lot of this was students that might have attended for a partial month, and the rules say they have to pay for the whole month. That's just what the district's payment plan is. But no fee was ever charged for that student for that month. We also ran into some different credits and late fee payments. There was an emergency day back like November. I think there was a single storm day, and the district issued a one-day credit for all families across the board. There was 9 students that didn't receive the credit, and 1 student who actually wasn't there in November got the credit. So that was caused by a delay that the program director didn't actually issue the credits until about 5 months after they were instructed to do it, so the timing got off. Late fee payments not posted into the Easy Care program. Almost the majority of fee payments for this program are being done by credit cards through the credit card system, and we compared the credit card system to the payments. Well, we would see late fee payments being paid through the credit card system, but they were never actually posted, charge or payment into the Easy Care program. Not a lot of dollars, but just a lot of errors. When we did that comparison of the credit card system, we found situations like 33 payments that were made, never posted. More interestingly, we had payments recorded in the Easy Care program that there was no record of a payment. And there was refunds being issued in the Easy Care system, and there's no record of a refund being issued. Management concurred with the response, with our findings, and we've been informed that starting with this school year, there's a new software program that's going to be introduced and implemented into the after-school program. It's called ELEO. My understanding is principals will be able to have access to rosters and reports to help assist with oversight. And then the last issue was because of the repeated history of the missing program records, this report's been forwarded to the Office of Professional Standards for further actions. And I'll take any questions if you have them.
Well, I'd just like to make a comment, and that is I think the ASP site director, I hope she's getting some additional training, because there are a lot of items that evidently seem to have fallen through the cracks. So. Are there any questions or comments? Mark?
I do. I'm trying to figure out, were there instances of attendance, but there was no record of payment?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's the one that worries me the most, because that's what it seems like, to where the parents, I guess, contacted to see if they paid.
There weren't even payment records to compare to. That was the bigger problem, was the payment records were missing completely.
Because what I'm getting at is if you have an instance of attendance and no record of payment, and then you contact a parent and the parent says, I paid, then you have a problem there. You might have some fraud going on.
Agreed.
And that's what I'm worried about with what's going on in this. It's just not records aren't being kept well. You might actually have some fraud going on.
Agreed.
There was a general lack of records all over, to the point where it was hard to determine where that was missing from, and each database didn't match up. We don't have registrations for people or kids that we've showing up, and because of all the different systems not matching up, it's hard to tell where it fell through.
Yeah. I think it should be looked at to see if there's instances of actual attendance, no payments, but when you contact the parent, they said they paid. They wrote a check or they paid cash.
Well-
Then that means there was a payment made that we can't find that money. So it went somewhere, and that's where you might have instances of fraud.
This was referred to where?
Office of Professional Standards.
Okay. What is that?
That is the function, the HR, that looks at employee failure for discipline or misconduct. Those are the issues, they handle the issues that don't rise to the level of an IG investigation. Because this was the same site director,
Right.
same individual dating back to with repeated. That's why we referred it to them.
Right, there was a prior incident where things were lost because they were taken out of a car or something? Or?
Right, then,
Some other-
and the individual was, from what I read,
At a
was
movie
told not to
theater.
do this again and continued.
So I agree that although it's a small amount, it's a really big mess. A really big mess, this whole process with this person. Have you seen this kind of a problem before?
Not
other
to this,
schools? In
not to
other
this
schools?
extent, or for this length.
I mean, you have one of these at every school?
We have, there's 93 of these programs at
93.
93 elementary schools,
Wow.
so.
But this is one that has a continued same issues dating back, repeated over and over since 2008. And that's why we did the special review and as well as referring it and speaking to the superintendent.
So where is the HR people, the professional standards, what do they do with something like this? Would they go as far as that question? Or they just say, well, it's a mess. I mean, you're not doing your job. That's a HR issue. But our job is beyond an HR issue. Ours is more of a financial issue. How do they address that?
HR or OPS also does investigations as well. Those issues that don't rise to our level, or that's why we want the centralized reporting. They also handle issues. When we find something that doesn't rise to our level, we will send it to them. So whenever we find an issue, something like this, we refer to management, and then if there is a fraud element, we may go further and do an investigation based on the fraud.
But you already sent it to them already without that.
Well, that's based on, strictly on the previous failures, the constant, you've been told not to do this, you
Okay.
did it again.
Okay,
That was referred to them.
okay, got it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we thank you, sir, deal with the software issue. The new software, will the new program communicate not only with the principal, let's say that the backup doesn't occur within a time period, will the extended learning office get notified that the backup did not take place?
Here, I can
We
answer
just had
your question. It's a very antiquated system that we're using, and we've been trying to replace it for years. We've gone out for RFP in the past, had nobody actually submit a bid. So we did finally select a vendor, and that it's going to be implemented in April of 2023. It's going to be cloud-based. We're not going to have to be dependent on doing backups at the schools. It's going to have centralized reporting where we can, the extended
gonna
learning
have
can access the information from their office and not have to physically go out to the school site to get it.
It's not going to have a repeat of the previous conversations we were having regarding software not communicating with other
It's
divisions?
still, it's going to collect credit card payments,
So
but
that's,
it's not, right, and it's something that goes through the school internal accounts, and some will be coming directly to us if it's the credit card payments, but it's not something that we would want to integrate with our PeopleSoft system.
okay, because it's only one user, it's not personnel.
Right, and it's related to the after-school program, so we're still recording the revenue, but we don't need, we'll be recording it from the credit card processing. You know, those revenues will be coming in directly to us. If I'm,
Okay, Mr. Turner?
and it's also
you-
going to be integrated with the SIS system so that the parents can be able to see their students. And so it's integrated with the systems it needs to be integrated with, or will be integrated. It will be.
Alrighty.
But it's a current system, not this antiquated one that we've been dealing with, that we've been really trying to replace for years.
All right,
It's
just don't
been
want to
very
be back in
difficult.
8 months or 12 months talking about, oh,
I-
this system doesn't communicate with that system, and
I hope that's not the case, because we were still limited on the vendors that responded to our RFP. So, but this was the best of the ones that responded.
all right.
So we're optimistic.
A lot of these programs are still done by hand, all paper, and other counties or whatever. It's
That's why it's difficult to find one that truly meets our needs. So we are excited that this is light years ahead of where we are right now.
We're Palm Beach County. I mean, nothing meets our needs.
Very true. Nothing is good enough for us. I agree with you.
Mr. Tierney?
Thank you. In addition to the new program and the principal's comments and management response, the principal supervisor within the regional office has directed the principal to conduct a monthly mini audit meeting with the aftercare director as well as the bookkeeper. During those mini audit meetings, the aftercare director and all financial reports from the new system will be reviewed, as well as registration forms and all other items related to the program. The instructional superintendent who supervises the principal will then meet with the principal monthly to review the notes of her mini audit with both the aftercare director and the bookkeeper, and we will document those meetings.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve this audit.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passed unanimously. Next is the 2022 unannounced cash counts at 13 sample schools.
This will be Carla Acevedo.
Not that one. Okay, yeah, thank you. Good morning, my name is Carla, and I will be presenting the results of our unannounced cash counts at 13 sample schools. Just to start, these unannounced cash counts were performed by the entire audit staff, and they did a fantastic job, and I think they are listening to us right now. So the objectives of these visits were to determine if all the monies in the drop safe were properly accounted for, and number two, the extent of compliance with district procedures in safeguarding the money collection process. The way we selected the samples is based on the results of our annual internal funds audits that we complete approximately in February or March of each year. We come back, we look at the schools that have the highest concerns, the highest number of concerns with cash collection process, and we rank those schools and we select the top schools. We also look at our processes, and if there is any indication that we might need to go back and look at the schools, maybe we get a request from the principal or any other communication, we also put the school in our list. So this year, we selected 13 schools for these surprise counts. We visited 8 of them, I believe it was, March 23, and 5 of them on April 18th. Okay. We have 2 conclusions. The first conclusion is that there was no money missing. For this, the way we came up with this conclusion was that we verified that we compare all the contents of the drop safe log to those recorded in the drop safe log, and there was no discrepancies on it. We also verified that each deposit that was deposited contained the corresponding money collector report and entry into the drop safe log. We also counted change funds for those schools that have a change fund. And 1 week after our visit, we also confirmed that the deposits that were in transit had been deposited in the bank. In total, for these one-day visits, we counted about $44,000 in cash and checks. Okay. The conclusion number 2 is there were some instances of non-compliance with district procedures. From all the schools that we visited, 6 schools didn't have any issues with procedures regarding cash counts. There were 7 schools that has some type of non-compliance issues. The first one was, there was one school where the safe was unlocked, meaning when the auditor arrived, he was able to just pull the door open, and there were contents in there without the other person having to enter their digits. The second issue was the collections were not secure in the drop safe at one of the schools. It appears the person had left the deposits in their office and left the school. At the same time, the Garda, the armored truck, came to pick up the deposits, and they didn't find anything in the drop safe, so they left. So the deposit was not deposited timely. It was left until the next pickup date. There was also some discrepancies in the change funds at 2 schools. There was one school that was using the change that was generated from the sales, the extra funds, to be used as change funds for whoever needed it in the future, without having to request an official change fund account to be established in the general ledger. And there was another school that had an extra $150 in change funds, but I believe that was clarified after we issued the report. It was just a misunderstanding of where the funds came from, so that one has been clear. Okay. Continuing with the non-compliance with procedures, we also found out there were some schools that were not money timely. There were some delays between 1 day up to 4 months after the money was collected. The procedure is that money has to be recorded in school cash within 5 days of collection, meaning the date, between the date of the MCR and the date is recorded in school cash. For these schools, there was a delay of up to 4 months with a total of $1,900. The second issue that we have also, there was that some collections were just dropped into the safe without a corresponding money collector report at some of these schools. There were 3 schools where we noted that. And the total cash was approximately $1,000. The other issue, the third issue was that the MCRs were not properly completed at one of the schools. With that, we say is missing information such as the date of collection, missing check numbers, and things like that, for a total of $420. The fourth issue we had was that some sponsors were not retaining the yellow copies of the MCR. The procedure is currently that the MCR, or the money collector report, has 2 sections, two copies, one white copy and one is a yellow copy. The white copy is put in the safe with the monies. The sponsor is supposed to retain the yellow copy, which is to be compared after the funds are deposited in school cash. The treasurer actually sends a receipt to the sponsor, and the sponsor verifies that the funds were actually, complete deposit. So, but some sponsors were giving the yellow copy and the white copy into the safe. So in that regards, there's really no way to verify later on. The sponsor doesn't have a way to verify if all the funds that he submitted were totally deposited. And the last issue here on this list is that in some schools, they use pre-number tickets for sales of events. And those tickets are used by us at a later point, or by anybody, to verify that all the tickets that were sold, there's the corresponding collections to it. There was one school where apparently they used tickets for a musical, but they didn't complete the document that says, I got this many tickets. So once again, there's a risk there that we cannot verify that all the tickets sold where cash was collected for them. And the last one here is just a list of our recommendations that we always we provide for this. One of them is to lock the safe at all times. That's more of a common sense. And to obtain the change funds from the Treasury Department, to use a designated account for it, and to remind individuals that are collecting money that they have to complete those money collector reports completely, include the check number, the date, the amounts, and put them in the safe on the date of collection instead of holding to them because they can get lost somewhere. And then also, of course, the treasurer should review the deposit information before depositing the funds into school cash. And if there's any discrepancies, the treasurer should return the funds to the sponsor for correction. And at the same time, the sponsor should always be retaining the yellow copies of the money collected reports that they drop into the safe, and they should keep them until the end of the year, and they should turn it to the secretary, I believe, and not to the treasurer. Questions?
Any questions or comments of the committee members? If not, I'll accept.
Briefly, real quick. You did 13 schools. Do we do 13 schools every year?
No, we randomly select the top schools, like we have a rating of 1 to 4. So sometimes we also have to manage our staff, and since we all go at the same time, we have to see who, how many people we have to go. So right now, this year, we selected 13. But we did it on 2 different days because of the issue that we have. Sometimes we don't have 13 auditors to go at once.
Right. For the prior year, there's no financial discrepancy here, a lot of compliance stuff.
Correct.
That's an okay thing, I guess that's a fact of life. Prior year, how was it? Do you have any reference that you can, how was your prior year?
Prior year was almost the same. There was
Same? Great.
no money
Okay.
missing.
Thank you.
Minor
Thanks.
compliance.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve this audit.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you, Carla. The last audit has to do with the procurement and inventory controls of mobile devices for students' remote learning.
And that is Carla again.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hello again. I was actually the auditor in charge of this audit, and the audit period of review was from March 2020 to June of 2021. And before we get started, we want to thank everyone who participated in this audit, and we want to acknowledge everyone who put these efforts into the distribution of mobile devices before and after, and currently right now working still to better the process and work with us in during this audit. So I think they did a great job as well. So the objectives of this audit were 3. To assess the adequacy of controls over device inventories and distribution to students. The second objective was to determine if the vendor billings and deliverables were in compliance with the purchase contracts. And the third objective is to determine the extent of compliance with the district, with the school board policies. Just to go back in time, as you remember, we closed the schools during March 2020 during the COVID epidemic. At the time, there was a high need of providing the students with mobile devices for distance learning. the district spent approximately $32 million to purchase new devices, about 85,000 Chromebooks and almost 15,000 Windows laptops and a few iPads, 930 iPads, to carry out their efforts for distance learning. This was actually an increase of about 177% compared to prior year's expenses in mobile devices. In 2020, the expense was approximately 11 million compared to the 32 million the next year. So in order to get the best prices, the district actually piggyback on state contracts to get the better prices, and also contracted with a local vendor to provide services for repairs and technical support. The first conclusion that we have for this, the first thing that we looked at during this audit was compliance with the purchase contracts. We wanted to make sure that the prices paid were not above what the state contracts had stated, and also that it didn't exceed the board approval limits. We found that the price did not exceed, the price paid for these mobile devices did not exceed contract terms, except for AC adapters that were purchased at a later time, and we will discuss that in the next slide. But in general, the prices paid also did not exceed the approval limits established by the board, approved by the board. So, okay. So the next conclusion that we had was, like I stated before, after the computers are given to students, they need to, sometimes they lose chargers and things like that, so there was a need to purchase extra chargers. We found out that the vendor had overbilled the district $27,834 for approximately 2,600 chargers. So, and through research, we found out that the reason for this overpayment was, or overcharge, was because the state contract was not written on the request for proposal on the PO. So we worked with the finance department, and they worked with the vendor, and the vendor reimbursed the entire amount. We can see that on the screen. We reported the observation on April 8th, and on April 15th, they got a refund from the vendor. So we're all good now. The third conclusion that we have is regarding the oversight of the vendor repairs for technical assistance services, which needs improvement. Like I mentioned before, the district contracted with a local vendor to provide repairs and technical assistance. And we needed to verify the compliance with, once again, the contract that they have with the vendor. So the first thing that we did, of course, was to pull all the invoices from the PeopleSoft system, and we wanted to compare against the supporting schedules, listing all the repairs or whatever they were doing for us. And we realized that the PeopleSoft system only had the cover page of the invoice, which is just a one-line item saying, on this date, technical support, $15,000, or whatever that amount was. The supporting schedules were not attached to the invoice in PeopleSoft. After conversation with management, we realized that those schedules are oftentimes maintained by the person that performs the receiving functions, which is the one that uploads the invoice into PeopleSoft. And although we know that we understand that is the current process now, we are recommending that they consider uploading more than just the cover page, just for record-keeping purposes and to have everything in one place. At the time of our review, the total payments to this vendor were approximately $500,000. The second bullet point there is about $42,000 in payments without supporting documents. This is part of the $500,000 that were paid. Since we didn't find the supporting schedules in PeopleSoft, we had to go back to management to request those supporting documents. During our back and forth and trying to obtain everything that we needed, we obtained most of them, but there were, from this $42,000, there was about 20, we got some documents that, about $26,000 of those were received based on our request from the vendor, which makes it appear that, you know, they had just recently been obtained. The request we made in August, but the invoices that we were looking for were paid December through May. So there was a little bit of a time delay in there. At the end of our review, because there is a time when we have to close field work, the remaining, there were still $15,000 of supporting documents that we never received from management or the vendor. So that makes up the $42,000. During our review of the supporting documents, we also identify about $4,800 of duplicate charges. In just a few invoices, there was some duplication of charges with the same ticket number, the same repairs for the same computer, and things like that. Just as with the chargers, we work with management and they work with the vendor, and they did receive a full refund for these overcharges. The last item in here was overbilling of parts and materials. Per the contract with the vendor, they are allowed to mark up the parts up to 9% of what they pay, of what the vendor pays. We try to run a review of as much as we can, but we had limited information about how much the vendor was paying for these materials. So we did a limited review with what we had. We had about 69 repairs that we were able to compare how much the vendor had paid for the materials versus how much was included in the invoice. And we identified that they were charging us a little bit more than 9% of the markup price. And since it was only like about 69 repairs, the total overcharge came to be about $1,500. If we had more information, we could have done a little bit more review, but we couldn't get any more information at the time. Okay. The fourth conclusion that we have is the vendor had update access to the district e-support system. Since the vendor was also helping in the schools at some point, and they need to keep, they need to have access to the e-support system, they were granted the role of IT staff, which allows the person to several different things to create, edit, and close the IR tickets in the e-support system. When the vendor takes a computer and correct and fix them and returns, they close the ticket themselves without first allowing the district staff to verify if all these repairs were completed. By the time the computer arrives here, the ticket, I believe, is closed. The problem that we have here is that the vendor uses the same e-support, our system, to produce their invoices. If the vendor can close a ticket and produce the invoices from the same system, there's a risk there of manipulation of IR tickets. They can close tickets and include them in the invoice, or close the tickets before returning every device that's repaired. So that is what the problem here is. Oops. Okay, and I think, oh, I didn't go back, okay. That's number 5. Okay, sorry, I jumped on number 5.
We have a new toy.
Okay, this is new, yeah. Okay, so conclusion number 5 is the inventory controls for mobile devices in schools actually need improvement. As part of these efforts, we visited schools to to see how they were handling all these computers and the procedures that we're following to see if there were any differences between one school and the other. We performed some analytics and we selected 9 schools which showed more than 50% of the devices were still available to students. The school uses what's called a Destiny system, and they track in there when they give a computer out, a mobile device out to a student. If it's still not given out, the status is available. So we run some reports, and we saw there were some schools with 50% of these mobile devices were still available. So we said, okay, let's go and see these schools to see what's going on. During our visits, we discovered that indeed there was about a little bit over 5,000 new devices valued at about $1.5 million that were still not distributed to students. In fact, most of them were still wrapped in boxes with tape on it. They had never been opened. We also noted that the status of some of these devices was not updated timely. The procedure is that if a laptop is given to a student, the student gives back a transfer of property form, which means that they are responsible for the computer. The ITSA at each of the schools is supposed to record or check out each device to a student to record in there that this student now has this computer. During our visits, we saw that sometimes the staff were using spreadsheets and paper forms to track who actually had this computer. We also noted that in instances where they updated the Destiny system, it was pretty late. Sometimes it wasn't on, as soon as possible. Like we said, we had some schools that had up to 153 calendar days after the parent had signed the transfer of property form to the date the computer was actually checked out, marked checked out to student. Sometimes when we announced our visits, we noted that sometimes most of the updates were done the day before we arrived or the day that we announced that we were visiting, while the computer was signed out many weeks before. So, and the last one in here is mobile devices were sometimes stored in locations that appear not to be very safe. They were sometimes, when I saw one school had the back door open, and when I asked who can come through that door, they told me anybody. Sometimes they were stored next to janitorial supplies, where it had water and light bulbs and things like that could fall on top of the computers and obviously damage them. Okay. I think this is the last, no, this is not the last conclusion, right? Conclusion number 6. The Destiny system inventory tracking features needs improvement. When we visited the schools, we noted that, like I said before, a lot of the schools were using spreadsheets to track certain statuses of the computers. The school has, the Destiny system in the schools only allows the ITSAs to track 4 different statuses, which are on screen, which is available, checked out, lost, and e-wasted. There are a couple of different more statuses that are also could be used, such as when the computer is sent out for repair, or if the computer is sent out to other schools that actually need the computers more. So there is the in-transit. So those 2 statuses currently at the time of the audit could not be tracked in the Destiny version the school had. So the ITSAs were forced to use spreadsheets and other methods to actually have an accurate inventory of what they had. This is just kind of an improvement, like an efficiency improvement and our recommendation here is just to investigate to see if there could be additional statuses that could be provided to schools in order for them to track everything in one system as opposed to using multiple systems, because This is one of the reasons why they ended up with more than 50% of available inventory sometimes. When we went to the schools, we noticed that there were a couple of more laptops that were given to other schools that had more need, but they were still recorded as part of their inventory. So this is just one of those efficiency suggestions that we have. Okay, and I think this is the last one, yeah. And the last one, number 7, students were assessed inconsistent fees for damaged or lost devices. When the parent obtains a mobile device, they are responsible, they sign up a document where they are responsible for repairs, or if the computer is completely lost or destroyed. They could get charged back. It is up to the principal to decide whether the parent will pay for it. If the parent is actually charged for the damages, there is a document that's posted. It's called the Depreciation Schedule, and that includes a price list of how much the person is supposed to charge. So during our review, we found that sometimes the person was being charged a little bit more than the price suggested in the depreciation schedule. For instance, for the first example, and remember, this audit was done like a year ago, so maybe this computer is not what it is right now, the price is not what it is right now, but at the time of our review, the full replacement value of Dell 3189 was $177 per the depreciation schedule. When we look at the SIS system obligations recorded for some of the parents, some had been assessed that $177, but some others were assessed $300 for that same repair. We also noted there was repairs done to the HP Chromebook 11A screens, and the average invoice repair for this type of repair was about $82 during that time period. Some parents were being charged between $65 and $269, but the $269 is the full replacement value of the 11A, not just the screen. So there were some discrepancies in there between what was documented as a price and what the parents were actually charged. And the last slide here is our recommendations that have been provided to management, and we have received the responses. And this is questions, comments. Thank you.
I just have one comment. I know we're running way over, but this Destiny inventory control, you know, it really needs to be corrected. I mean, I look at one school, Boca Raton's got 3,500 instruments that are just sitting there unused. And somehow, with a total of $1.5 million in undistributed mobile devices, someone needs to tighten the reins on that, so.
Another system.
Right.
Well, I
Get a
can.
new system, or use the system at any rate.
I can address that, and I do want to just reiterate that the IT department really did a monumental task by quickly pivoting within a couple weeks to purchase over 80,000 computers, close to 100,000 computers, get students and a computer to every student within our district in a short amount of time. We couldn't delay releasing the computers and to put controls in place, so we had to work with what we had. So the Destiny software is what we utilize for our textbooks. And because we thought, okay, we're using that in order to assign textbooks to students, we should be able to use that easily for computers. It didn't transfer as we had thought it would. So we have been working on putting additional controls and procedures in place. We're also looking to purchase a new IT software specific asset management system for computers. And then also the IT department, how we track our computers is we log on to our our network, and we're able to track it by the IP to see whether it's logged into the computer, logged into our network somewhere. With Chromebooks, they're very different. They don't have the same capacity that a regular laptop does. So our IT department has been working hard, and they developed a new program that we can utilize, that we can now track the Chromebooks with their IP to see that they've actually logged on to our network somewhere. So they've been working hard to enhance the procedures that we have in place. And just to go to show, it was, we spent over $30 million and very small amount of issues that were identified. So I just want to recognize the IT department for just doing an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? What's the e-support system? What is that?
That's our ticketing system for monitoring whether we have, when there's issues. So we would log it, we enter a ticket to say that there's a computer needs to be repaired, and we also use it for other areas. If I have an issue with my computer, I can go in and log in and enter an e-support, and it's our way to track that there's an open issue, and then until it works through the system, and then it's closed.
And that's globally through the school district?
It is.
For any computer-related issue?
Yes.
And the vendors that were used to buy these computers had access to that system?
They do have access to that system, and we are monitoring that based on, or revising it based on recommendations from the Inspector General. But I want to reinforce, we had controls in place. The IT department was keeping track of every computer that was being sent to the repair consultant that we were using, because we had a choice at the time of either staffing up, hiring 20-plus employees, which we knew we were not going to find to be able to repair these devices. We would have had to buy parts, have expertise that we just don't have internally, or outsource it. So we chose to outsource it. In the beginning of the pandemic, which a lot of this was in the beginning of the pandemic, we had very few consultants that were even willing to be forward-facing with the parents. We only had one vendor that was willing to have locations for parents to bring the devices when we were not open for brick and mortar. And so that's where the $40,000 in invoices relates to, was when the parents had the opportunity to go directly to the vendor to get a computer fixed while we weren't here. I mean, we weren't physically here to assist them. So we were fortunate that we did have vendors that were willing to do that during that time period. But we were keeping track, and we still do, of every computer that's sent for repair. And then when we get the invoice back, we compare that to make sure it was a computer that we sent out to them. And we're also monitoring that list to make sure we get the computer back. And I do agree with the Inspector General that we are spending a lot more time. We do have spreadsheets, and we are monitoring it through multiple different ways. And it is taking a lot of additional time, but it's to ensure that we are tracking all of our devices. But it's also why we're looking for a more comprehensive system that is going to cost money. It's not going to be cheap, but it's not only going to monitor these Chromebooks, it's going to help to monitor all of our computers, which we have a process in place now, but it's only going to improve it, as well as all of our software programs.
Okay.
So I see this as positive. This is very positive of what the IT department was able to do, and the purchasing department in such a short amount of time.
Good. Carla, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Any
Mr.
other comments on this? If not,
Can I ask a question? It showed $177, and that's based on a depreciation schedule? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so what we're going to do, the Inspector General had recommended we charge the actual repair cost to the parent. I don't believe that that's the best and most efficient way. It's going to be too difficult for the schools, that we're going to go back to what we were doing initially, but just have more and better communication to the school sites to use the depreciated value. So if a computer comes in, based on the age of the computer, they'll look at a chart, and then they'll say that this computer is worth X amount of dollars. That's the amount that the parent is going to have to pay.
The problem with that is the board has to go out and buy a new computer at the new cost. So I don't know that that's helping us. I mean, these parents should have to replace the computer with the cost of a new computer. Just because the depreciation on a 2-year-old computer says it's not worth what we paid for it, we still have to go out and buy a new computer. So whose decision was it to charge that instead of reimbursing the district for the total cost of a new computer?
We are getting the computer repaired. And so they would be, so we are sending it off for repair. It may be more or less than the amount of money we're collecting. So the students step on the computers. They throw the computers on the ground. A lot of them are screens that are
What if it's
cracked.
lost?
If it's a complete loss, I mean, we will have to go and purchase a new computer, so there could be a difference in that price. But when we're looking at the repairs, there's going to be a certain amount that we collect that exceeds the amount of the actual repair cost, and some that's going to be less. And so we wanted to treat it more like we treat lost and stolen textbooks, lost and damaged textbooks, and that process. So we will have that revenue come into the district, and it may not cover the full amount, but at least the parents are being assessed for the damage that was caused by the
Can you provide a report to the school board as to the difference between what we collect and what we have to pay out to replace or repair so we know what the difference is? It may be small, but it may be very large, and we need to know.
Yes, but also keep in mind that we do have the ability, the principals have the ability for hardships to not charge anything.
Right.
And so that, we just have to take that into consideration as well when we're doing that comparison. But we can look at the amount of fees collected. We're changing that process. Right now, the schools are keeping that money at the school site. We're going to have them, like I said, treat it just like we do with the lost and damaged textbooks, send that money up to us, and then that way we would be able to compare how much we're collecting versus how much we're paying on repairs.
All right, and a question for the IG. Can you attach those, all of those reports that you just had here today? I know we get the minutes. It's attached to the school board agenda, but I'd like all the board members to be able to see those PowerPoint presentations. Can you attach them to our agenda for next week to make sure that they're all there? Because they're much more detailed than what we see in the minutes, as Mr. Dixon pointed out, so it'll give the board a better understanding of exactly what you're looking at and the results of those.
Of course.
Thank you.
I accept a motion to approve this report.
I'll make a motion to approve
Or a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Passed unanimously. Terry?
All right. We have two issues that were brought up in previous audit committees, and we need to present to the board. One of the issues has to do with the school bus safety devices. We did an audit on the school bus safety where we went out and we did an inspection of it's not in the agenda. This is something I just need to get discussed with the board, or the committee.
Not on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
The committee asked for us to go back and do another unannounced inspection of the school buses because there was not video, was not retained. We had requested it and it had not been retained. We did as the committee requested. We went back out, did another inspection. We requested the video again, and did not retain the videos and did not read our request. So the report is going to the final, but we are still at the same place we were before, so I wanted to bring this to you all's attention. I don't know if the committee would like us to go back out and try for a third time and hold the report, or do you want us to just bring the report?
I don't know.
What was the video? I can't.
What it is when they did the safety inspection, they went out and they'll look at the buses, and one of the things that they need to do is look at the videos from the school buses to see if the bus drivers are going to the back of the bus and checking things, and
Right.
hitting the thing. When we finish our inspection, we contacted Transportation, the director, and said, we need these videos for these school buses. They did not respond or read the email, and because the system on the videos overwrites itself within 30 days, by the time the notice was taken that we had put that request in, those videos had been overwritten. So the audit committee said, that's very important. We want you to go back out and do this again to see if we can get this video to see if these things are being done. We did that. We put the request in, and again, we had a failure in getting the response. And again, the videos were overwritten.
A failure of response, or the response wasn't what you wanted?
There was a failure and please understand that Transportation is down by hundreds of people. They didn't read the email in a timely manner to be able to hold the videos, and they had been overwritten.
What was the issue?
I personally think we know there's issues, we know what some of the issues are, and I think it just goes to the report gets issued. This is just my opinion, and then obviously for the next year there's other inspections, and then it goes through to see if those issues were fixed. I don't know if we necessarily have to go through the whole inspection again. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Sanchez, who is the Director of Operations, which handles transportation.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So I've been sitting here for a couple hours waiting for this question to come up. So the good news is that, the bad news is that the old technology that we had didn't record for more than 30 days. And the good news is that we're currently, at this time, installing the equipment that's going to allow us to record longer periods, longer duration. So this issue is going to be addressed in two ways. One is that we have a form that we need to update that is submitted for requests for videos. So that form goes to multiple people and not just one person. And when multiple people can see that request is coming in for the video, at least somebody is going to catch that and make sure it gets addressed. And the second part is that, like I mentioned, the technology is improved now, so we have hard drives that can hold a lot more data, a lot more video. So we shouldn't be having the same kind of problem that we had previously.
Great, thank you.
All right.
There's already issues identified, and then I'm sure in the future there'll be other types of investigations, and you just compare those to what, in the.
Put it in your work plan.
You'll look at it in the future.
Put it in your work plan.
We will. We'll have it.
Follow-up.
It's done.
That's a follow-up.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
I'm fine with that, too.
And just as a point of information, Mr. Chairman, I'm presuming we're going to put this on, this goes under the agenda under audit reports, it's just as an update?
This report is going to be coming forward. You have it.
I mean, what we're discussing right now.
It's not on the agenda.
Right, so.
So it's an informal discussion.
Right. It's in order to know that we could
Should have been
present.
brought up. It should have been amended, the agenda.
Correct, and I'm just making sure that we know for record-keeping purposes what exactly we're talking about right now.
Yes, the report will be coming up at the next audit committee.
Okay. So this is an upcoming audit report under Section 5.
Right. Yeah, the next audit committee will be presenting this report. I needed to know whether or not I should send the auditors out again. I can just submit the report. Got it. All right. Last is.
Mr. Chair, may I just ask a question? Mr. Sanchez, there's children that are dying in hot cars, so how do we know that the bus driver is checking those buses? Because that's the whole purpose of having that button on the back of the bus, is to make sure there's not a child sleeping on one of those seats where the bus driver can't see him. So I'm concerned that we're not checking that to make sure, God forbid, that there's not a child sleeping on one of those seats and we leave them locked up in the bus for hours. So I understand the problem with getting this quickly, but are we making sure that, how are you making sure that bus drivers are actually doing what they're supposed to do to make sure there's no kids left on those buses when they shut them down at 4 o'clock or whatever and leave the compound?
We have a number of new buses now, fortunately, and those new buses all have the alarms on them. Even the old buses have the alarms on them. So before the bus driver leaves the bus, that alarm goes off. He or she has to walk to the back of the bus to turn that alarm off. And obviously, they're going to identify if there's any students on the bus when they turn that alarm off.
And what's the percentage of buses that has that alarm system on it?
All 100% of them have the alarm.
Okay.
We have to note that there has been some issues with the failure on the alarms, where the alarms do not go off, and that we found that was one of the issues why we wanted the video was to see, because the alarm did not work when we were out there doing the inspection. So we wanted the video to see if maybe, it was happening. It was another check to see if some of these things were occurring.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. But the alarm is on every bus. It may fail at one or two cases, so you have to have the child is on that bus, and two, that alarm failed, and that hasn't happened yet, so.
Last, The audit committee had asked for a listing of the automated district processes and from the previous reports, and they wanted a table. Now, this is, we presented, this is on the agenda, and this is what we had at the time of the audits. I understand that there has been some changes and some updates, that some of these things have been updated. There are better processes in place. We just don't have that information right now.
Right, because this was, I think, updated on Monday, and so we've been working with the departments to try to get an update by today. I was trying to get something so we could upload it by yesterday, but I wasn't able to. I can update any of these items if the committee has any concerns with them. I did want to clarify one, or correct one, with the purchasing department. It states that the purchasing department lacks a centralized vendor registration system. And we have a centralized vendor system within PeopleSoft, and it more comes up when we're talking about the diversity study and with the subcontractors, with our minority subcontractor vendors, because they're subcontractors. That's why it's not included within our actual vendor system. So I did want to clarify with the committee that we do have a central vendor system, a central bidding system that we utilize as a district. It would be a significant control deficiency that would have been identified by our external auditors if we did not have that. And then also, going through the first three items within the accounting services department and internal funds, those are manual processes that will stay manual. I mean, we do have forms, but there is no integration that we would have with PeopleSoft. It's very different at the school sites than it is at the district, and we have to be cognizant of the teachers and the additional burden that we put on the teachers. We have looked at automated systems, but none of them are ones that would work for the district, and they would only cause more confusion at the end of the day, where a form was started and never finished because a teacher got sidetracked and created another one. So it would just create more reconciliation and burden and more confusion. We've put a lot of mitigating controls in place with the forms, so we do feel that the processes that we have right now are adequate at the school sites. It's a training initiative, but we would still have a training initiative if we had an online system, so it does come down to training. And then the item under educational technology, where there was access related for single sign-on, that was created several years ago, right after the report was issued, where that system was added to our district portal, which requires a single sign-on. Those were, and the bus safety, that one was just discussed. And with the maintenance plan and operations, they have put that process in place. They're now utilizing our e-forms. And we are working with the FTE reporting system that is tied to our Universal Student ID program, an initiative, and so that is going to take some time, and that is something that Mr. Sanchez, as the COO, is working on. And so once we have that process in place, we'll be able to utilize the Universal ID will help with the issue of having the FTE surveys not be manual, but being able to scan the students on and off the buses. We're already doing it as a pilot, but that would be a way for us to do it district-wide. So we have made improvements on, I would say, almost all of these items. So if you have any other questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Any questions? Michael?
No, not this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we've got contract and procurement activities quarterly report for ending March 31st and one ending June 30th. Mary, is there any need to discuss these?
These are for your review. We have Bob Liss here, who is the director or the compliance and procurement. If there's any questions on the activities?
If not, I'll accept them. I'll take a motion to accept these reports.
I'll motion to accept.
Second? We need a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Passed unanimously. The next item, FYI investigative reports. These were previously sent to you by Joyce. Are there any comments of the committee members? I want to thank the three of you for sticking it out so long. It's only because we haven't had a meeting in a long time but it was a quality meeting, so thank you all for sticking with us. Are there any further comments to come before the committee? If not, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I just want to invite everybody over to the cafeteria at noon, for those of you that stuck around. We're very proud of the fact that Palm Beach County, out of the 10 largest urban districts, us and Miami-Dade were the only two that retained our A status. So the superintendent's got a celebration over at noon in the cafeteria where he's having cake for everybody. So if you want to stick around a little longer, you're welcome to come over there.
Thank you.
I think I'll...
Made a motion.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Joyce, you'll help me with that.